Alrighty. Artyom Zakharov, otherwise known as Arty. So we're both freedive instructors, and we actually met instructing for Adam Stern, who was last week's episode. Now, I was trying to think of an easy and nice way to say this, but I don't think there is. Artyom is not the most showy of humans I've ever met. Not a salesman, Um, he's certainly not like selling himself as this crazy, intriguing person. I hope that's not offensive to you, Artie. But turns out this is actually part one. We spoke for 2 hours and we didn't even get halfway, right? And I only realized that there was a huge root system underneath the ground here when we were in a beach in Tonga. We were freediving with humpback whales. It was bloody epic. That's a whole nother story. And one night, a group of us were around the campfire and we were playing Two Truths and a Lie. And now, for anyone who's unfamiliar with that game, it involves a person saying 3 things about themselves. 2 of them are going to be true, one's going to be a lie. Now, I can't actually remember what Artie's lie was, but the 2 truths were, I've been to Russian jail and I've been buried alive. And holy fucking shit. Need to get that guy on the pod, right? So, we went through everything from dealing poker in mob-run underground Russian casinos to like fucking relationship dynamics and online dating, everything in between. So, as I said, this is only part 1. Part 2, I think, will involve us burying each other alive beforehand and then going for it, which I'm hugely excited for. But without any further ado, this is the story of Artyom Zakharov. Okay, so I need to write things down. So this is my very formal notepad.
I have the entire page.
Alrighty.
Welcome to Lillipilly.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Artyom. I actually don't know your last name.
Zakharov, and I must say that I have a special place in my heart for people, foreign English-speaking people who make effort to pronounce my last name, my first name, just like you did just now.
Oh, okay.
Because obviously I wanted to make it easier for people when I arrived here, and it has been a story of my life where I worked in a call center, and every time I call someone and introduce myself, I had to spell out my name exactly like Artyom, Artyom.
Yeah.
And people were kind of mocking me when they were calling me, like, hey, Artyom, Artyom, how are you? So I said, like, I'll make your life easy. It's Arty. And everyone's still getting confused. But hey, for people who call me Artyom, I'm like, oh, thank you for trying.
Okay, well, there you go. Do you just not feel maybe that arty of a person? I don't know. Like,
I used to say to people that I think Arty sounds like a dog name. So if you can avoid calling me that, do avoid. But then I'm like, I incorporate it as like an Australian part of my identity.
Fair enough.
I think Arty is kind of like easygoing, relaxed, because I'm an Australian now. So Arty is, I don't get triggered by that as I maybe used to before.
Cool.
So Arty is fine. Artyom is...
I'll stick with
that's
Artyom.
my heart.
It sounds cool. It
Yeah.
definitely distinguishes you as Russian, which I guess is probably a good place to start because you are Russian.
I am.
And from what's going on, everyone has an interest in what Russia is and who they are and whatnot. I don't know where you usually think about your story beginning, whether it's childhood, whether it's 18, whatever, but where does Artyom begin his life and how does that look and what is it like growing up in Russia, essentially?
In Russia, we have a specific term that stands us Russians apart, and that is directly translated as mysterious Russian soul. Soul, yes, okay. Mysterious Russian soul. And this is kind of a thing that we carry with pride. It's something ours that others will never understand.
Mm.
And during my life, I started questioning the truthfulness of that kind of concept, but I can go back to that a bit later. I was born in Russia. I'm 75% Russian, 25% Ukrainian. I lived most of my life in Moscow, and then I moved to Sydney. And so Moscow and Sydney were my 2 home bases. So I never lived anywhere else for a considerable period of time. And I moved to Sydney when I was 30, and I'm 39 right now.
Okay, cool. So just going back to that Russian mysterious soul.
Mysterious Russian soul, yeah.
Mysterious Russian soul. And we can discuss whether that's true or not, but what is it supposedly? What's the definition of that?
The best way I can describe it as we are special in a very intangible way to others. We know that we hold a special place in this world, and it's really hard to figure this out, or impossible to figure this out, what Russians are about, unless you're Russian, and then you just know.
Yeah.
And I guess the mysterious part comes from exactly that our making, what we're made of, our culture, our history. The idea is it's so convoluted, but at the same time magical in a sense, that we, in this world, whatever we have, we hold a special place, and the world needs us, and we're just like this borderline intangible, invisible glow in us that makes the world better just because of our presence. I think this is I think the idea that is in its term.
And it sounds like it's not just mysterious for other people, it's mysterious for Russians themselves.
Not so much, actually.
Okay.
Like, we know mysterious for them, but like, we just know, like, oh, hey, we can't really explain how that works, but we see it works. That would be in Russian, right?
Okay.
And and it obviously, like, imagine mysterious Australian soul, right? It, like, if you kind of apply this concept to yourself.
I think it's more of a boisterous.
Yeah, it's kind of like makes you feel a bit special, and like, hey, we're not just, average and gray, and which in fact sometimes the reality of Russia was. So it kind of makes you feel special.
Do you think, because that, upon initial, and this is, I guess, a bit judgmental, but it sounds just like a coping mechanism.
I came to a conclusion that we have a lot to work on. We as Russians collectively, we are unique as a culture. Are we special? In some ways, maybe, but I think also we could benefit a lot from integrating with the Western world a bit more, and learning learning to open up, because I think our history has molded us into something very stereotypically reserved. And this is by all means the brick faces, the lack of smile in public, the lack of banter and small talk in a grocery store. You have no idea, because you're used to the opposite here in Australia. And I was very surprised in a good way that this is the life here, because I craved it secretly, or not so secretly. And when I used to go back home, and you go to a grocery store and you kind of have this natural urge to have a chit chat, and
it's just not on.
It's never a thing.
And
it's never a thing.
Even if you try to do it, they're just staring at you like a crazy person.
Yeah. So I think the best way that I usually explain it to foreigners is that in Russia, culturally, for a long time, Soviet era, etc., you would be safer if you don't stick out. If you just mold with that gray mass of people moving around, and you're not colorful in your expression in any way. Because if you are, the projector, the light is shining on you now, and everyone's like, what's wrong with this person? He or she is suspicious. Maybe we need to pay closer attention, because it might be a source of threat to the well-being of the society as a whole, if that makes sense. And because this was the case for quite a long time in Soviet era.
Yeah. And I guess it's kind of natural, because where my mind goes is, I'm pretty ignorant about Russia and Russian, but probably less than most, because I did a semester of Russian language and was planning to go there in uni. It's just such a big landmass and such a harsh environment. It kind of makes sense that the humans who did evolve to find success, just survival success, and not just that, but build an empire and whatnot, within that harshness, compared to most other places, probably do need to be a bit more just strong and rigid. And
It's an interesting. I think I like this angle because if I think like, okay, let's think about Swedes, Finns, Norwegians. I would say they're also kind of quite like reserved
compared to Central Africans.
Correct.
Who are the most dancey, smiley people ever.
I love this angle, but again, correlation and causation. This might be one of the factors, but our repressive culture back then in Soviet era and what it's becoming now has definitely made its impact too.
Yeah.
I think there are multiple angles that just all converge into this. I'll be safer if I don't stick out. And this was my biggest inner conflict in my reasonably adult years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And because again, that probably works and is a very good strategy to employ in the social economy and context of, barren, cold winters, Soviet Union. But now that the world's opened up and it's basically America's world, in a sense, like culturally, socially, playing by those rules that work well in Siberia don't work so well on this now globalized planet.
Yes. On that note, Russians are warm, but it takes time and it takes setting to uncover that warmth. And it's also a part that we recognize as a mysteriousness of that Russian soul. Like behind closed doors in the kitchen, we call it kitchen talks because like I don't know if it's hard for you to imagine, easy or hard to imagine, like a small Russian apartment. We have just a couple of rooms, tiny narrow corridors, lowish ceilings, and a kitchen. And the kitchen talks in the evenings are kind of like the thing where we come online. We become alive. We open up. Yeah. And it takes time to get into that kitchen if you're in Russia in the first place. And
as an outsider.
Yeah. And get people to talk because I don't know, I'm from Moscow and St. Petersburg are more westernized. But if you go to rural Russia, it's still the same.
If I rock up to, bloody Irkutsk or something, it's going to be a while till I get into that kitchen.
It's going to be a while until you find the person who speaks English. Let's start with that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let alone.
One thing I notice about Europe in general is that because the winters are so much more serious than they are in Australia, for instance, it's almost like 6 months of the year people are, even in Germany and Britain, people are a bit more switched off. But then the summers are even more hectic. It's like every human on the planet almost has one energy field of social battery.
Correct.
And if you're saving it through the winter, you have more to unleash in the summer. Correct. Is that ultimate with Russia? Like you're so closed all day, all winter, and then in the summer in the kitchen for 2 hours, you're just a bloody maniac?
Yeah, pretty much because in Siberia, people usually hear how cold Siberia is during winter, but maybe what they not really talking about is how hot Siberia is in summer.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's two extremes. It gets really hot.
There's that one city, I think it goes from negative 63 to 40.
Pretty much. Yakutsk, yes. Yes. So it's wild. And yes, the days it's the daytime that gets longer that obviously gets people out. Snow is out, snow is off. We can finally, go to the nature, enjoy some nature, and then we're back to hibernation because in some regions the winter lasts like 8-9 months or so.
Yeah. So is the Siberian summer like awesome?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's very green. The mosquitoes are horse-sized. The people are great. Again, as a Russian, it's easier for me to connect, but the people, the spirit of the place, because in Siberia, when I traveled there for some sort of hikes expedition during my spiritual journey,
we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Yeah, it was fascinating how it's a land where you feel different. You feel that this is also Russia. This is a different Russia, and you feel. There, I've also felt pride for the vastness of our country and the diversity back then in 2011, I think.
Okay.
It's as a foreigner, if we ever get to the point where foreigners are more welcome into Russia and we set up the infrastructure, doing the Trans-Siberian across the country, stopping and simmering into that local experience and maybe getting into a kitchen or two, if you're lucky, is something very precious, because as much as you said it's America's world, and Russia currently is closing off from the America's world, but also Americans, not Americans, but virtual Westerners, call it this way, they have this curiosity, which you display right now about Russia. And I think that exchange, that exposure to the different set of views is enriching, whether you agree with those views or not, because it just gives you different angles. And lately, like literally last year of my life, I've been focusing on the value of connectedness in my life, because it's been lacking for a long time, and I'm also happy to go into that. Cool. And this creates more connectedness to the world around you, whether you like it, that world, or not. It's I would recommend to anyone, whoever ever gets feels safe enough, when it's safe enough, to go back to Russia. I hope that time comes soon, to not just go to Moscow and St. Petersburg, but take the train. To go deep into that mysterious Russian soul, whatever's left of it.
I mean, I'm sure there's heaps left of it. That no matter what happens in my short life, I have already noticed, though, that those places out in the countryside and whatnot, they change decades slower, than everywhere else.
They do.
Would you say that, just trying to paint the picture and get a grasp on what Siberia, that essence that you described, would that be similar maybe to an Australian going to the outback?
Outback.
Like, this is the Australia I kind of always heard and knew about, and this is the real outside identity of Australia, even though no Australians really live and spend time there, but it's almost this coming home within my own home feeling.
Yes, I think it's direct equivalent.
Yeah,
correct.
Cool.
It's exactly that. I can't say it any better. It's equivalent to that.
So, getting the feel of what it's like, growing up in Russia. You're obviously a very introspective, thoughtful person. Thinking
over thoughtful.
Over thoughtful.
If that's even a word, yeah.
I definitely relate. Now, there would have been a time when you were young and you were somewhat less conscious and less over thoughtful.
Mm-hmm.
Can you remember when you might have started to really think about things a lot, and what it might have felt even before that time or during that time of starting?
I mean, if I remember myself being young, I switched a couple of schools because my parents, who broke up at around 5, when I was 5 years old, I switched between a couple of private schools. And when I say private schools, it's like more of a homeschooling environment. It's not like Knox or something. It's just something low key in the first floor of the building. It's like daycare setup here.
Okay.
It's kind of like, if you think of a school that's like size of a daycare in Australia, and it's just like a homeschooling, different type of education, which I was very fortunate with, because it just made my life a bit easy and kind of maybe opened me up a bit. Less indoctrinated into that Russian
big
lifestyle.
Systemized public school.
Not that I ever was in the risk category for that, to be indoctrinated. I don't know why. I always had issues with authority in my life. Anyway, I remember myself being pretty over thoughtful from a young age, introspective, as you say. Probably was because of mostly insecurity and lack of that connectedness, that I was scared. I was scared of being rejected everywhere. Therefore I created this world inside of my head where I'm better than everyone else, and so I don't really need to engage, because what's the point, right? Wow. I only later understood the fallacy behind it, right? And insecurity that came along. But as far as I remember myself in Russia, school was easy in terms of academically, hard in terms of connectedness.
Like making friends,
being bullied, had it all. I cried a lot when I was a kid because I just couldn't protect myself from bullies and all that. So it was really tough experience here and there, and
I'm imagining, this might be a bit stereotypical, but I'm imagining the bullying on a Russian playground to be pretty intense.
Oh yeah, I mean, bullies are kind of like, you feel the same everywhere, but just like, I wouldn't say it's like double harsh. They bring guns to school, etc. Although some might. It was just very heartbreaking as a kid to feel that. I kind of like cruised through high school and still remain introspective because I also discovered that I have no ability to long-term plan my life. Like, when they ask you when you're getting like 17, 18, okay, what do you want to do? What do you want to study? I'm like, I have no fucking idea.
Do you think that was because you just didn't see any ideals in that Russian society? You didn't see anyone or anything that looked like, yeah, this is something I could get around?
Primarily, that was due to me already realizing that Russian higher education is perceived as a society as a must. As in, like, I think there was a stat that Russians have the highest percentage of people with college or higher level bachelor's, actually, or higher level education in the world, because it's a social pressure thing.
Okay.
We have a lot of universities. People they finish high school, they graduate high school, and they are socially pressured. Okay, what uni are you going to? No gap years, no nothing. And for men, it's especially double hard because you have a compulsory military service looming on you.
Do you?
Yes. So it was 18 to 27, 2 years at that point. Right now it's 18 to 30 age where you can be conscripted, and now it's 1 year, I think. So you, as a man, I felt double pressured to do something about it in the state where I wanted to do nothing at all about it. Right. So I had no idea. And also, because it's a social pressure, everyone does it. It's actually really hard to get employed if you don't have higher education. It doesn't need to be relevant to what you're doing. So in case you want to go work in a cafe, they will ask you for your uni diploma.
Really?
So like, maybe I'm exaggerating it to a certain extent, but generally higher education is like a door to adult life, like a pass.
Okay. So it's almost like if you didn't go to uni, it's the equivalent, perhaps not so harshly, of having gone to jail for a little bit in Australia. It's like, what the hell? Like, who are you?
Exactly. Yeah. So, I hated the idea, but I was forced.
Okay, before we fully delve into that, I imagine modern Russian kids and teenagers, because they have the internet in their hand, are a lot more exposed to Western society and
Correct.
the other side. And maybe at 18, when they're thinking about tossing up between this social pressure for Russian uni or going somewhere like Australia, they probably have a far better grasp of what's going on. Was there any of that?
No, because from Australian perspective, I can understand your thinking, but from Russian perspective, you are actually very limited in both financially and the amount of countries you can actually travel to.
Okay.
Without visas or without scrutiny from the immigration officials.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to have Australian passport and have the entire world open to you. When you have a Russian passport, you have China and Africa and some other countries open to you, because it's kind of like these are the world poles, right? Western versus Eastern and Russia alliances, etc. So for Westerners, Australians, you can travel anywhere. You can do whatever you want. If you have money, go for it. For Russians, you may be dreaming about it, but it's really hard.
Okay.
It's not that you can just, decide, oh, I'm going to go on a Europe trip, even though Europe is just three hours away.
Yeah.
No one's going to give you a visa if you're a 18-year-old high school graduate.
Isn't it? You don't even think about it. I think no Australian 18-year-old could even grasp that idea of not being able to do their Euro summer.
Exactly. And wait a second. You won't actually be able to get an international passport to travel as a man before you do the army.
Really?
Yeah. So you will... I actually don't know how that works right now in terms of like, are you actually restricted on getting that? It's just going to be very bloody hard.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Shit.
It was very bloody hard for me because I wanted it. And I did not want to go into Russian army because, again, it's like a whole other level of indoctrination, which I thought it was a waste of time. I actually love the idea of thinking about patriotism, definition of patriotism, and I have a lot of thoughts about that, Russia-wise, Australia-wise. And so, yeah, I was always curious, as you say, never had the ability at that point in my life.
Yeah. Okay. So what did you do?
Good question. So when I was 18, I graduated high school, and I was pressured from both of my parents to, go to uni because they saw me as a bright kid, and maybe I was to a certain degree because high school was fairly easy. but also army was looming, military was looming, and I had to choose, but I didn't want to choose. So I gave into like, okay, let's choose something, which was a bad idea and I hated it. But I ended up applying for Moscow State. This is the biggest university in Russia, Moscow State
I know
University.
the one with the towers, right?
Yeah. Journalistics department, so media, and I chose radio.
Oh, here you go.
Radio. There you go.
Put it to use.
Yeah, but I never wanted to do it, and now that I'm only making this connection right now. Yeah. I felt really like lack of connectedness in my life for a long time, and becoming going to a journalistics media department where this is the entire point.
This is monetizing connection.
Just wanting connection in the first place, right? Yeah. Then monetizing it. I did not. I wanted to lock away from the world. So that was initially a bad idea. I struggled, suffered for 2 years, and I dropped out.
Okay.
And sorted my army issues with some far-fetched health conditions which I had and which could exempt me, and they did exempt me.
Okay.
So that was sorted in a couple of years. So at least I had some reprieve from that looming over me to need to make a choice, so I could kind of live my life.
Okay, cool.
Which I...
And how did you
live as an overstatement, yeah.
Really?
Because I was left to my own accord. Yeah. And as I said earlier, I was struggling. I didn't yet understand why but then I did. I was struggling to make long-term plans. Like, what do I want? Who do I want to be? You know, all those questions that people ask themselves effortlessly. And I couldn't. And I mean, I could ask, but I hated that I didn't want to find an answer. I didn't want to dream. Did not want to dream. Is
that just because if you set that expectation, that hope, and the reality, there's just such a muddy path to get there, you have no idea, so you don't want to...
Yeah, because ultimately it's about doing. And all my life, I've mostly been a thinker. Not like, oh, I have an idea, let me execute that, fail forward, Elon Musk.
Yeah.
try, fail forward, iterate, and land onto something. I was always scared to do that. Okay. So unless there was a huge motivation behind it, like my Australian journey, I was great in building the sandcastles in my head, and then just it fizzling out. And again, back then I did not understand why, and now I do. Now I'm working on it, which again related to ADHD, and now I'm managing it. And my life is I'm more functional. But back then I had no idea, and even if I did, I would not have any solution to that.
So on a day-to-day basis, what does that look like? Is that playing video games in mum's basement? Is that smoking weed at the skate? Like, what is that actually look like?
So I have a very rigid rule set in my life about substances. Mm-hmm. I used to have it, and maybe it's gonna flex a little bit later on in my life. It's something I don't know that I don't know for the future.
Yeah.
As a Russian, I have never tried vodka.
Vodka?
Yes.
No.
As a Russian. Yeah, see. Yeah.
What?
If there's anything I can predict in this life with 100% certainty, is this reaction from anyone I tell this with. Everything else is uncertain to a certain degree. This is always 100% guarantee that this is going to be the reaction. Yeah, right. As a Russian, I always felt disgusted by vodka. Right? Like, why do people do that?
It never made sense. You haven't tasted it though.
Huh?
So you never even tasted it?
Like smelling it was enough. I'm like, why would I put this into my body? This makes no
effect,
fucking
right?
sense. Yeah.
No one likes the
taste.
Wait. Okay, please.
It gets better. I can drink, like cider or mulled wine, probably my two favorite drinks, but I rarely do. I have never been drunk in my life as well.
Wow.
As in, I've been tipsy.
Yeah.
But I've never been pissed. Drunk to completely lose control and crawl on the floor, vomit. I always despised that. I despised people who do that in my young age.
Is this because you, again, in your head, you were thinking like, oh, I'm better than everyone?
Correct,
so
correct. I thought like, you are idiots. Yeah. I will not be doing that because it doesn't make sense.
Which of course is true, but you can say that and hold that as true if you're willing to sacrifice all hope of connection, because that's how you connect.
This is exactly what I didn't understand. So we use alcohol to increase level of connectedness. And as I said, I was trying to avoid it at all costs. I was afraid to lose control. So I coped with it by like, I'm better than you guys. You go fucking get pissed and destroy your brain cells, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm better than you. Great things are meant for me in the future. Oh, the delusions we feed ourselves. I never smoked weed, cigarettes. I was never in an altered state of consciousness by consuming substances.
Yeah.
Now that I understand my motivation behind it and my coping behind it, did I change my attitude to alcohol, for example? No, I didn't. I still don't want to drink. I don't like drinking.
But you at least see the social utility of it.
I see the social utility. I see, again, going back to connectedness, is the biggest part in my life that is currently always been missing out. I've been missing out on, and I'm working to foster it in organic ways, just like this one, or just having conversations with people, because I was always in the mode that I should not be doing that. There's no point in doing that. I'm scared to do that. Coping. Because now again, I'm getting better.
If you have a conversation, especially, may I add, with maybe a pretty girl, and there's rejection involved in that, but that directly, you can't avoid the challenge that faces to the idea of you being better than everyone. With that, I mean, that's...
I never had issues with girls.
Okay.
Yeah, as in, like, I never approached a girl in a bar in my life.
That's what I mean, though. Cause
I was always in a safe realm of online dating for the majority of my adult life when I was interested in girls. Yeah. So pretty much all the time in Australia that I spent since arrival here, I only met 97% of girls that I met were met through online dating.
Yeah.
And it was effortless. Yeah. I don't know, due to my just physical characteristics, being tall and white, you name it, I don't know. But also maybe I was lucky, but it was never, I think that they right now discuss on, like, everybody discussing online dating, how much of a hell it is. It's never been a hell for me, and I find it really interesting because I want to also understand why.
Well, it's probably, I don't think it's not that it's a hell. I think it's a heaven in relative terms when compared to the real world in terms of rejection and receiving rejection.
No, I wouldn't say so, because when you read online dating, like Reddit, subreddits, men get rejected time and again, and they suffer. They cannot, like, get rejected and keep going. Girls are scared to reject boys because they will get a shitstorm in return. So they prefer ghosting. Yes.
Online, so
yes, and men shoot their shots in a maybe not so aware way, get rejected, and they get bitter.
Yeah.
Rejection is very hard in online dating, and I can open you a subreddit and people will share how badly they hate rejection.
Right.
Even in online setting, when they're not even facing a person yet, the people get ghosted, people get outright rejected. It's hard. It's hard out there, and it's never been hard for me. And I love this subject of online dating because, again, it was effortless. And I, again, trying to understand why. And I also trying to, every time someone else says something about online dating sucks, I'm like, but can I know how you do it? I'm super interested because I think I know how to do it.
Okay, while we're here, how do you do it?
Shit, we're like heading on to so many tangents.
Yeah, for sure. That's the point.
My idea.
What's the strategy? Sell me a course.
I think it's literally one thing. One thing, that overarching strategy, then you can apply tactics to think how you can achieve that.
Okay, perfect.
For men.
Yeah,
For men, your only goal is to figure out how to make this woman feel positive emotions, laughter, curiosity, you name it, as opposed to negative. Be fluent in generating those effortlessly and organically, not in a needy way. One. And two, understand do you have a potential to enrich her life? So it would be a dumb decision to not be around you.
So those positive emotions stay in the long term, in the real life context as well. So it's basically
Of course they do. If you have this attitude of, hey, I am here because, like, if I like you remotely, right? It makes sense to me that you would want to stay. Well, if you like me too, and how would you like me? If I enrich your life in the way that you like, why would you leave? right? Because if you want me, if my presence makes your life better and you feel better on a day-to-day basis because I am there, why would you want to leave? Why would you not want to develop this relationship, right? So for women, it's important to understand the scarcity and abundance, right?
Okay.
Women are scarce.
Yeah.
There are more men trying for women than women trying for men in the online dating world.
For sure.
So scarcity and abundance creates a particular dynamics, right?
Social economics.
So yes, correct. So men need to win over women. So because there are so many options and people are very disappointed in the options they have available. That's the other thing. So for men, tactic is to interest the woman, make her feel good, and enrich her life.
Yeah.
But it's also balanced that you don't want to just enrich someone's life who doesn't care about you and not reciprocate, right? So it should be balanced. For women, there's a lot of bad options.
Okay.
And there's a lot of options that are 9 or 10 men, handsome men, who only want to sleep with them.
Yeah.
And then, but women think that, oh, hey, I met this cute guy, and maybe we'll make a family and have children. Kind of like very rough, stereotypical.
So
Wait. Let me finish. So they sleep with them, hoping to keep them, but the man always had the intention to just sleep with them because they sleep around. They get a lot of women, so they break up, and women gets heartbroken and also sets her bar at that 9 or 10, and she never goes lower because if I got that guy, this is what I should be striving for, even though it was an accident and that guy never wanted her long term in the first place.
Okay.
Wait.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things like really happening there, but ultimately, I think that for guys, you got this strategy. For women, the best strategy is to delay sex.
Yeah.
To keep the fire burning and to get to know a person and see how pushy a man becomes in sex. A third date, fourth date. Delay it consciously. You can say, I don't want to have sex. I like the idea, but I think it's worthy for me to not have it for a while because I want to keep the fire burning and I want to get to know you better. And women are scared to do that because they think that the guy that they like will disappear. But if they do disappear, there was not a guy that is good for them in the first place. Yeah. And women are also horny. They also want sex. It's okay. But the sex is the currency. I think that sex is like something that in our current reality of dopamine and feeling good is something important that if you burn it at the wrong time, it will spoil everything.
So what you're saying is on the woman's side of things, because as you say, they're horny as well, they'll go for a 9 or 10 thinking in their head, wow, I can maybe keep him for, the long term. Because they're basically always going for long term, it would seem.
Yeah.
Whether they'd like to admit it or not. And then it's probably a cope, saying that no. And then the 9 or 10 is really just trying to sleep with them. So they go away, but in their head, they're now at that standard of, well, I'm not going to sleep with someone who's a 5 or 6.
Correct. My bar is that high now. I actually was able to attract the 9 or 10.
Yeah, which makes sense. But then they can get lucky and maybe find a 9 or 10 who is willing to stay with them, but
they will feel like, oh, I'm settling. I'm not doing well enough as I could. And there's another thing there for women specifically.
So what happened? What would you say to women who have already done that? Because they probably do that when they're like 19, man, like young.
Oh, they are doing it when they're 30, right? And it doesn't make their life easy. I was just kind of getting onto something else. It's discernment skill.
Okay.
For women, that is also needs to be developed. That is, can you vet the guy reliably well? Can you see dickheads straight away?
Yeah.
Can you see the red flags straight away? Or is your judgment clouded, or you just don't know how to tell?
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of bad options that women see as good options. And when I look at the guys, how they portray themselves, I can see pretty far away that this guy is unreliable and he displays bad flags.
Yeah.
Yet women fell for them.
Yeah.
They might be falling for them because
they want to change.
As per attachment theory, they might want to change them, or they falling in a traumatic familiar scenario, replicating whatever their childhood situation is with their caregivers, right? There might be a lot of reasons. But the fact is, the quality of people in online dating varies. There are more men, therefore women need to go through more options. A lot of options are bad. So they want warmth, they want relationships, so they find someone and they hope, I like this guy, and things don't work out. Things do work out. I'm not that pessimistic, but I think online dating takes a lot of skill and a lot of experience from both sides and different strategies and tactics. But one thing remains the same: genuine intent, not trying to play, pick up game, pick up artist, red pill, whatever that bullshit is. Not that for men. For women, it's being more in the brain and discerning rather than riding the feelings would be the winning strategy. Okay. And it's hard for women.
Okay. One thing I have heard in this whole space of, whatever, and there's a lot, this is a thing as old as time. You're kind of saying that girls should probably stave off sex and be very discerning with it and not do it straight away.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense. What's the argument for guys not playing the field? Because a lot of people will say, oh, girls should have like a low body count, as they say. The guys, it doesn't matter. They should maybe have a higher body count.
It's important to state that, my opinion, the girls can have any body count they want. It's I would question whether they're falling into the same trap again and again, increasing that body count, choosing to have sex with someone and getting disappointed.
Yeah.
I'm not condemning women to want to have sex and having casual sex, right?
Yeah.
I'm rather trying to compare their reality, what they want from online relationship. Because if they want casual sex and they have casual sex, no problem.
Yeah, it's intense.
But if they want long-term relationship, they keep trying candidates, but it always ends up being casual sex, then maybe it's the discernment part that might need to be re-examined on women's side.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. You were talking about men though.
Yeah, and on the men's front, I guess it's probably the same answer. If you go out there with the intent of casual sex, there's nothing necessarily wrong with it.
Yeah.
But is there a version for guys? It sounds like there might not be, where if you go out with long-term things, how do you, I guess, is there a way, or have you seen where a guy will have the right intention of a long-term thing and then he'll be in the same cycle of ending up with casual sex? Or is that less likely?
So if a guy, whether he has long-term intentions or not, has a lot of casual sex, it means he's attractive to women. Because again, women are a scarcity resource, and if they repeatedly choose him, multiple women, that means he is something, he is attractive, he's funny, or he does something that attracts women.
Yeah.
Right? So if a guy ends up having a lot of sex, that he's doing something right. But I don't think there is a scenario. I think there's also a scenario where a guy is not attractive, and I don't just mean physical attractiveness. As they say right now, he gives women the ick.
Yeah.
Right? And he might want, and there's a lot of guys who do want long-term relationship, and they fail to go on dates repeatedly because clearly, as opposed to the guy in the first example, they're doing something very wrong. Yeah. They're not attractive. And for those guys, I think the best idea that I see is understand what is actually attractive about you. And I don't just mean physical part. So it's like being groomed or being fit or living a healthy life or you name it, right?
Yeah.
But what about your personality makes you stand out?
How can you be a positive, as you said before, how can you make some potential woman's life better and positive?
Correct. And the simple question I think is worth starting on. If you imagine how people swipe on the apps, have you ever done it?
I've never done it myself, but
so people just, literally, I'm like, what is the average time in seconds that a woman, a reasonably attractive woman, spends on the profile?
Half a second?
A second.
Yeah.
So the strategy, what can you do to your profile to increase that time? Okay. So people actually stop and look, and this is already a win.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't have access to that data, but I think it would be a reasonable strategy. Like, and not just, try to trick women. Again, being genuine you. Can you still be genuine you and make a woman
and then look
zoom
at the second
in
photo.
and like, oh, that dude doesn't just look cute, but he stands out in a way that it's like a fresh breath kind of thing in the sea in the air of fucking just copycats.
So I presume what strategy you employed was not holding up the biggest fish you've ever caught.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Luckily, I don't spearfish. I think the best strategy is to realize that, hey, do I want to lead a life that stands apart, is like interesting to me, and you can at the same time realize it's different from your average life. For example, I'm a freediving instructor.
Cool.
And it's a great card to play, not because I'm like doing becoming a freediving instructor to attract more women, right? But the photos that I have of me doing my stuff, it's not just a job for me, it's my passion.
Yeah.
And I think it goes through that little picture where I'm in the water with seals or sharks or what you call it, where people could stop at me and say, oh, hey, this guy's doing something interesting, right? So my question is, do you have something in your life? It doesn't have to be this. You don't need to be on the moon, or you don't have to do like something special. But I think the key thing is whatever you're doing, you want to come across as genuine and like, I'm loving life and I'm unapologetically me here in this. I self-actualize in the way that I like, and I'm unashamed of it.
Yeah.
If you can portray it and deliver that feeling through an online profile picture, I think this is what makes people stop.
It's interesting you say this, because I've been following this guy who talks a lot about social media and building followings for business and stuff. And he says exactly that. There's so many people who will basically be, as you said, copycats. Like, oh, okay, if I want to get a girl, I need to have bigger muscles, so I go to the gym, or I need to do some grooming or whatever it is. But that's just things they've heard, and it's not necessarily, for some guys it will be, but for most, it's not necessarily a representation of their true and unique selves. So it might work to a certain extent, but then, okay, you attract a girl because you suddenly have big muscles, but you don't actually care about that. Are you going to keep on going to the gym once you've got her? And B, like, what kind of person is she? She's falling in love with like a surface level, almost played out character that you've developed.
Correct.
Whereas if you follow who you uniquely are, 99% of the world might not be into it. But the 1% who is into it for you. Like, and that's the real you, and it's a more potent version of you. And it means your life is also better, even with or without the girls who might be attracted and the friends who might be attracted to that.
Correct. I think, the most unattractive thing in a man for a woman is neediness. Like, I'm desperately trying to get a partner, long-term or short-term. And women feel that really well.
Yeah.
And people try to hide it, and they keep failing. Men keep failing. But the thing is, they don't understand that this is what they are, and that they need to understand that if they're focusing on outcome and obsessing over a positive outcome that bad, it kills their chances.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And they also think, in that sense, that there is a method. I buy an online course to attract women.
Artyom's online course.
Yeah, I'll teach you the ways. No, I do X, Y, Z. There's an algorithm, and once I have arrived to the final step, I will wake up to 300 likes on my profile.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
What it works is, I think the key thing here is you self-actualize in the way that is interesting to you. In any capacity. You need to be burning with passion about something in this world, be it accounting, fucking, you name it, any sort of obscure sport,
jet skis,
anything. And you should be unapologetic about it. I don't care if you don't like me doing this. I love it. And this is important to me. So you can go find someone else who fits you, because I just love this thing. Why would I sacrifice it, right? So they need to self-actualize in something.
And that's the antidote to neediness, because the girl can see, well, he likes this thing more than he's ever going to like me. At least initially,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, well, he doesn't need me because he needs whatever his burning passion thing is.
There's
I need to then work and maybe be in his life for a year or two.
It's also a bad thing because a healthy, functional relationship, you make space for another person. If someone is really passionate about something, work, whatever, and if they meet someone, but they still don't make space for them because they're now in their life, this is also a problem.
For sure.
Right? But anyway, self-actualizing unapologetically in something and displaying that passion through pictures where you are just yourself. You're not manufacturing a persona. You're just showing angles of yourself that can come across as attractive. And this is not fake. It's important to distinguish here. It's okay to show the best sides of your life where you're living the life like you love it. Living the life, loving it.
Yeah.
Unapologetically. And I think that does the job because people want to create a persona thinking that persona will attract women more.
Yeah.
No, true you and vulnerability is the key skill for man that is mostly lacking in that.
Well, it's the willingness to show your true self. And as I say, potentially 99% of people aren't here for it. So you have to cop that.
And that's okay.
But then you win the 1%.
Yeah.
Like for you in the last few months, you'll have photos of you. I mean, or there'll be, if a fly on the wall will have seen you swimming with humpback whales.
Yeah, you were there.
But also taking a shit in the morning.
Yeah.
So they're both your life, right?
Yeah.
And you can see which one you're going to post on the Tinder profile.
Correct, yeah. So I think the strategies are simple for both sides. And I don't think people understand. I mean, I lived that strategy and I saw that working, right? And I would love to tell people more. And I'm like, if anyone struggles with online dating, I'm happy to chat and happy to look into that because I think I can help people.
Yeah, cool.
Maybe I'll fail here and there, but at least I'll give them a fresh angle, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people don't understand the strategies that is genuine and not manipulative or fake. And also discernment is a big thing.
Yeah.
Seeing red flags in people early on or from their dating profile and being more discerning would definitely benefit not just women, but men as well.
And I think there's a certain level of patience, like, and I'll get vulnerable here as well. Like, I haven't found much struggle like that initial attraction of women ever, but a certain element of me not wanting to take that, like on a night out the other night, there'll be plenty of attention and attraction, but I've never been lured into going home with someone or taking someone home. I really haven't because again, it feels like I'm selling myself short, which is annoying because it's these opposing forces where on one hand, well, you're attractive. I mean, everyone's horny, right? We could just have some casual sex. But at least for me, it's never been an intention. I will be pretty open with the fact that I would like to say not desperate, but definitely optimizing for like long-term partnership. And there's a certain element of having to be patient and having to like withhold and hold that sexual urge and that horniness back a bit. And I don't have an answer there because I'm so young and I haven't got a long-term partner, right? So it's something that I definitely am interested in because I don't really know.
I held sex as a sacred thing on the pedestal that I don't just do because again, it was kind of like it was also that judgmental coping thing. Just like with alcohol, they do alcohol, idiots.
Yeah.
And they do casual sex.
That's, I think, how I feel.
They're chasing girls, like fucking around. Yeah. But I'm here to meet the one, which was also a coping mechanism, right? A lack of connectedness that prevented me from having any sex until I was, when did I lose my actual virginity? That was...
Here we go. Cheers.
2010. So I was 25.
Okay.
25. Yeah. Up until then, I had like this weird, like a long distance relationship with the idea of a person. That was a very painful experience. For 4 years it lasted, and we only saw each other once for a week during like 4 or 5 years. She was in Poland, I was in Russia.
That's mental.
That taught me a lot of things. It was heartbreaking. Or so I thought in love, and she was the one, but it was just my idea of relationship that was flawed, right? So
that's kind of how I feel myself. It's like, I'm not sure, and I've learned a lot in this most recent relationship. Certainly going into that, such an idealistic image of what a relationship is, so laden with expectation and on a pedestal. And my partner really helped me, instead of just running away straight away, it was helped guide my hand for as long as she could manage, in figuring out what my perception of a relationship even is. Still though, and again, to a increasingly liberating extent, but nonetheless still that same thing that you've described with alcohol of like, oh, casual sex, that's what others do. That's what a base version of me does. Like a drunk version of me can slip into that. Yeah. But if I have my head screwed on, I don't.
Yeah.
And it is a sense of, superiority and like holding out for the one, because someone out there who's the one who will also have done it like me. But
that turned not to be true for me. I mean, I see where their idea coming from. It's a very attractive idea to
so the Christians, right? Like hold out till marriage, and
there's nothing wrong with that, like within certain ideologies or religions. But I'm rather saying that for me, I found that the one was always an avoidance mechanism, an avoidance to make a decision. And I was blessed to meet quite a lot of fantastic potential long-term partners, but I always bailed because I always find the reason that they are not the one.
Yeah.
And the people who are not the one conveniently were never available to me. And I'm
the
like,
people
wait,
who could have been the one.
And I'm like, and I finally realized that this is a flawed mechanism of discerning in me, that I'm only attracted to people, attachment theory, attracted to people who are never will be available to me.
Okay.
And this is why I'm chasing them.
The people who you thought could be the one, you couldn't get?
Yes. Yeah. And who are people, fantastic people.
Who you could get?
Without red flags, they were available to start a family, and I always bailed. I'm like, and I noticed that at some point, I'm like, clearly there's something here I need to learn.
I definitely have a bit of that, like a decent spoonful of that. I've always thought that, because again, I'm still young and I'm not no one's ever fully actualized, but I feel still so mini compared to the potential. And I remember when I had this ideal of a sailboat, for instance, I was like, I'm not going to meet the one. It's impossible for me to meet the one until I'm on the sailboat, because like the kind of girls who are currently attracted and available to me, they're attracted to like this base level version of me is not even on the sailboat yet. So I don't want them, right? Because I'd be settling, right?
Yeah.
But once I'm there, then the kind of girls but of course I didn't realize that girls actually judge you on potential, not on actually so anyway, yeah. It's certainly an interesting one to play with, eh?
I mean, right now I'm in a long-term, 2.5 years now relationship, baby coming up in 2.5 months-ish. And I'm finding that actual family and long-term relationship is very different from what I thought it would be when I was years back.
So right? I don't want to like step away from this because this is the juice, right? But I feel like we took a pretty big leap at some point when we started getting into this.
Yeah.
Because you were a very confused, lonely young guy in Russia. And
I was very much into video games. So we finished and I dropped out of uni. I started my military thing and
How did we get here?
And I needed an escape from my pain that I did not even realize I had back then. I was lonely. I did not have anything in my head to plan or dream of that I could, keep executing day by day with discipline. I did not really work out. I was just, the not teenager, what do you call it? I was 21, 22 plus. So I found the magical world of video games, specifically first-person shooters on computer like Counter-Strike and Quake.
Yep.
And this is where I thought I could self-actualize. I'm like, I was naturally decent at it, but I was not like national class or world class, anywhere close to that. But I was good enough to keep me hooked because.
But that's how they're designed, right? They're designed.
Oh no,
to
you're playing
hijack-
you're playing against other people, and then they're designed equally for everyone. If you have reasonable enough skill to win, this is what keeps you hooked.
It's a proxy for the real world. For young men who love the idea of self-actualizing and leveling up and gaining things and status and money and whatnot, this is what a video game is. It's just a simplified with the rules. You know, there's clear rules and boundaries, where in life, suddenly
everything is fucking gray. Gray. Like nothing is black
it's
and white.
It's easier to win the video game than it is to win life, because winning life is a non sequitur.
Correct. But I thought that, hey, finally I find something, being delusional to an extent, where I can self-actualize. So, and simultaneously, which I also didn't realize, to escape the reality and escape my pain that I had a lot of. So I just day in, day out, I can't remember how I figured out money at that point. Money was always like a pain thing in my life. But I had time on my hands to just play video games day in, day out, and trying to numb the pain with this dopamine where I beat my friends in a round of a video game. That lasted, but at some point my family started kind of pressuring me, you know, getting like considerable age, like what, 25-ish plus, where I needed to work. And I think I found my first job around that age, which like I depended on, I can't remember who out of my family, but for a while in terms of money. And it was really hard to accept that reality. And so I didn't. In 2006, I finally gave into the idea that I might need to, you know, start a job, because I always hated to be dependent on money, even though it was kind of like a traumatic recurrent scenario. So I finally started looking. I found a job ad for a casino.
Okay.
Which I never even considered to be a thing. I mean, I knew people work in a casino, but I never thought I could. And the job description say, if you're good at arithmetics and like simple math, which I was, and you want to learn something fun and, you know, work in a nice, clean environment, and you speak English, and I did, come give it a try.
Nice.
So I went for an interview in one of the Moscow's casinos, which were then legal at that point. Now they're not. And I passed the math test. I passed the interviews. And so I got into the intake, and I was trained to be a dealer in the casino, dealing blackjack, roulette. It was a high-end casino, so people could come with a stack of $1,000 chips and just sprinkle them around the roulette table for one spin, right? So it was a kind of
a 30 grand at once, like kind of thing.
Yeah, eerie feeling where you see that they're holding 1 month's salary and in just 30 seconds it's gone, right? But I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and because again it was dopamine, like hits. Like just there, we're addicted to gambling. I was addicted to the novelty of the work experience, right? I'm not just doing something repetitive. Like every spin is a new spin, every deal is a new deal, and I kind of ride that roller coaster with them. I'm not necessarily cheering for them. I'm impassioned, just dispassionate. What's the word? I don't care about the outcome. I was actually pride that I didn't care, which another layer of my being out of touch with myself. But I loved it.
How did that affect your relationship with money? So now you're suddenly for the first time earning your own, but then watching a month's salary, like, you know, just drain in a second.
I accept it as a part of life, I guess. That money, if I was to answer this question, money was always hard in my life, in the sense that because I'm unable to long-term plan still and dream up, I'm also unable to accumulate money to reach some goals. As in, like long-term vision is barely accessible to me as a whole, as a person. It's very hard. So money come, money go. Money comes, money goes. So I always have enough, but I also never have a surplus.
Yeah.
And I'm unlearning this with the help of my beautiful partner, who is much more savvy than I am.
And I guess that probably again speaks to, if you have this delusion, this arrogance, I'm going to do like, there's greatness awaiting me. And then you actually try to act upon that and act it out, and then you might fail to some degree. It's like,
I'd rather
my whole worldview,
shatters.
So I'd rather just never take the shot and have the excuse, well, if I had taken the shot, it would have happened, but since I didn't, it was my choice.
It's a common fallacy of thinkers and non-doers, but I did not realize it until much later in life. Yeah. So money started happening, and at the same time, I got into poker, Texas Hold'em poker. It was booming in Russia. Yes, dealing first, both playing, then dealing, then playing for a while as a part of my endeavors. So it's actually an interesting part. So at some point when I came to work, I saw that people playing a bunch of people playing a card game around the table, and surprisingly to me, they were playing against each other, because in casino you have a couple of players playing against the casino, and there are odds, and you know that the game is always favorable towards the casino, right? But these people were playing against each other. I'm like, what are they playing? And I asked my friend Dylan, and he said, oh, Texas Hold'em. It's a kind of like new thing that people are really into. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
So you guys had never heard of Texas poker?
No, it's a new thing in Russia. Right. In Russia, right? It takes time.
That's mad.
So I went online and had a look and kind of like figure out the rules. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Hey, and I'm kind of observed, sitting, just watching them play. And I'm like, from dealing perspective, it looked really cool. It's like, it's a different level of engagement with players, because when they lose, they're not angry at you. And mind you, it's Russia. People can get angry, and it's socially normal to get angry. To be like on a negative scale, like being by default angrier than an average Australian, for example, right? So we had quite a few outbursts of people losing money, right? So I'm used to that. But it was interesting that people were, playing. There was skill involved, math involved, which I like. And they were playing against each other. So if they still can be angry at you that you dealt the hand, like they dealt the hand that they lost. But the fault is,
they still lost it. And
you still lost it with your skill, right? Yeah. And I also like the skill aspect of the game. Like, oh, I want to learn. So I played online a bit. And there was some sort of online communities, and one of the dudes was saying, "Yo, hey, we're playing this online tournaments as a team. It's important. If you're interested, let's have a chat if you want to join us." I'm like, "Cool,
yeah,
so let's have a chat." So I met this dude who was a part of a team, and here's how it worked. Simultaneously, during that time, online poker was growing. PokerStars, other poker rooms, etc. One particular poker room, and don't ask me about the source of money for that poker room, I don't know, maybe the London money, etc., was throwing large tournaments every day. And by large, I mean the buy-in, so the amount you need to pay for the tournament entry was $100.
Okay.
The prize fund, guaranteed prize fund, no matter what, was $100,000.
Whoa.
So to make it break even, they need 1,000 people. And the reason why it was so interesting for that team of players is that they never actually got 1,000 people. So if you get 500 people, it means no matter the outcome of your participation in that tournament, by investing $100, you automatically have an expectation to win 200.
Yeah.
Just pure math, right?
And you never found out where that extra surplus money is coming from.
It doesn't matter. The other thing is the level of players on that website playing the actual game was lower than the level of players of that team, because they actually studied the game.
Yeah.
So winning was also easy. The tournaments were every day. The first prize was 25%, $25,000.
Wow.
So what they did is they rented an apartment and set up 15 plus something internet connections with different IP addresses. Literally 15 accounts with different providers.
15 so you have laptops, all these different Wi-Fi boxes, but
15 laptops,
yep,
computers at that point, and I don't know, 5-6 people operating multiple entries within the same tournament. obviously increasing the chances.
Yeah.
Sometimes we ended up at the same table and could see each other's cards, which was, well, cheating. But because we had different connections, who would caught us? Russian authorities, they didn't give a fuck. And they were raking in cash. Just
Who was starting this team?
The team was started by a prominent Russian public persona, which I'm not going to get into right now, but everyone knows that. And he's right now prominent in politics, in Russian politics. But back then, he was just it was an endeavor, right? He had money. I'm like, this makes sense financially. Let's do that. And it worked well. So what I did. Why were they gathering a team? They needed hands on the mouse, on the mice to play the game. I learned how to play the game, and my job was the entry, right? So I get a handful of accounts signing up for this tournament, having that overlay of money. Overlay meaning like there is a surplus in the prize fund that we're actually getting for free, right? And my goal was just to play multiple accounts in the tournament and see which one I can push the furthest in the tournament. And at some point when we enter the money phase where your finish is actually getting paid, I pass it on to a more skilled player who actually finishes the tournament and hopefully places first, getting that sweet 20,
so you might get them to the finals and then they play the finals.
Yeah, I was actually my proudest achievement. I think we played at some point a 1,000 entry tournament. I actually got it to the final table.
Wow, nice.
But they were skilled players, and I still actually that was like my warm memory.
Yeah, sick. So how long are you doing this for?
I think I've been doing that for months and months, and I actually left casino. So I went to work in I went to
Such a rogue.
I went to work in it's kind of like two things happening at the same time. I went to work specifically in poker dealing, and at one point, they declared poker to be a sport in Russia. So they formed a federation, and they were holding national championships, etc. And I was working in training, teaching people how to physically deal cards around the table, and traveling the country. And then at some point, they also snapped the finger and declared the whole thing, gambling, casino, poker, illegal.
Really?
So they built all this thing, and then at the snap of a finger, you know what? No, it doesn't match with Russian values. It's all Westernist shit.
So all gambling was suddenly illegal.
And they created 4 Las Vegases around Russia where it's still currently legal. And this is it.
So little cities.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So kind of that was my direction, one direction of my card career.
And
and simultaneously with that, I was doing that for a couple of months. But then I can't remember what, maybe I was taking it too much for granted, and it was a combination of that, but also I wasn't growing in my skill. Poker is still a tricky game to master. I did not have enough skill, and I did not have enough discipline to learn to make it to become a really strong player myself. I'm a decent player, but I never actually studied it with enough discipline to become a really, really good, solid player. Because again, of my type of my personality that craves that dopamine and flashy plays instead of being conservative and determined, etc. So I dropped out. So I did that for a while, raked in quite a bit of cash.
On the computers?
Yeah, and live too. And I still play here and there in Sydney. I don't know, can't remember when I played last tournament, maybe 5-6 months ago. It's still fun, and I still I won a couple of tournaments in Sydney, but I'm not good enough to do it consistently right now. It needs a lot of discipline and studying, and I don't want to gamble it. I always like to think about the game. I don't have enough theoretical knowledge about it right now, and not enough discipline to learn it.
So you never, because and by a few degrees of separation, I know a few people who just make just normal income, like a decent income. But just by playing it, because if you really play it logically, following the numbers, similar to day trading, right?
I love that.
Everyone hears about, you make all this money, but you can actually make that, whatever salary, $100,000 a year, if you just play the numbers.
You can, yeah. It's also a roller coaster. You need to be very resilient emotionally because even though you know the math, the main thing, if you make a mathematically correct decision in poker, it doesn't matter whether you win or lose. You still made the right decision. But if you keep losing, making the right decision, it can be very damaging to your mental state.
Yeah, because then you stop believing in the right decision.
it's just heartbreaking because you think that the universe is against you, even though you're doing the right thing, and you know you're doing the right thing mathematically. It's a big thing, and I can see a lot of people like playing life with people, how people are burnt out. Like I'm like, okay, that was like 80%, 20%. You were 80%, but you still lost to 20, and that's okay. That happens.
But if that's your week's rent,
yeah, pretty much. And they just lose it. I'm like, I see why. It's hard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the toll is high.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I did that for a while, and I think it was a brilliant scheme, and I'm absolutely not apologetic about it because hey, we hustled this way in Russia, you know, Westerners, and like trying to find ways to, you know, it was an interesting experience back then. But then I kind of dropped out.
Yeah.
They kept doing it for a while, and they also stopped because I think that that poker room ran out of money eventually. Like, imagine pouring in $100,000 a day. Yeah. So, and then I kept on working in the casinos, and at some point again they were declared illegal, and I'm like, okay, what do I do next? And I thought I'll just continue because, well, people still had this desire to play poker. So a lot of illegal casinos started operating in Moscow and, well, across Russia, right? And the pay was good. Risk reward. Risk was high because the cops have now the law to, you know, raid the place. I don't think we were ever raided because the owners bribed the cops. But the lawlessness of the whole enterprise made people more loose in their expression.
Okay.
They brought guns. I've seen people smash chairs on each other's heads because they lost. It just became very, very risky, and you had no police to. You
can't call the cops if someone pulls a gun on you.
Yeah, because it's illegal now, right? So it was getting.
Mate, that is such like James Bond walking into this underground Russian casino.
Yeah, it became really
like
spicy.
The big, bald, big Russian security people. What was some of the spiciest shit you were saying?
Yeah, like that. People just starting the fights, crashing the tables. No one killed anyone, luckily, but it was just getting spicy, and you were there, you know, getting some decent money, not gonna lie. Obviously being paid for the risk.
Yeah.
But at some point I thought, well, it's going nowhere. And as much as I kind of like was used to the familiarity of it, the dealing cards and knowing the game, I'm like, I guess it's time. After a year or two, I decided to look for something else. It correlated with the start of my spiritual journey in 2009 and 2011. I finally ended the gambling poker part of my career and moved on to something else.
And yeah, I remember in Tonga on the beach, you mentioned a few things, and one of them was tied in with a spiritual journey. Where was it right? You were part of a spiritual club.
Yeah. So in 2009, New Year's specifically, 2008, 2009. Actually, that's a pretty interesting part of my life where in 2008, I had my finally first ever overseas trip to Costa Rica, which kind of transformed my perception of the world. I went alone by myself.
That's like the opposite place to Russia.
Yeah, it was it was a very far trip. I went through the US. I got a US visa into an empty passport, which was really strange that I did. Like a lot of things fell into place. I earned money for that trip, winning a poker tournament online. Literally having lost $5. I had no money to pay for that trip. I bought the tickets. I had no money, and I put in my last $5, and just by skill and by some luck, I won a tournament. Like I think it was $1,200, which paid for my trip expenses.
Sick,
right? So I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. I was like, my parents.
Would you have got on that flight with $0?
Hey?
Would you have got on the flight to Costa Rica and back with $0?
Well, no. I didn't have any money to, like, I wouldn't know how to do it. You know how to do it. I wouldn't know how to do it because it was my first overseas trip and I was, remember, insecure.
Yeah, so bad, yeah.
But I was lucky not skilled enough to win, and some lucky, and that actually transformed my life. Quite dramatically, that trip, because I knew that I belonged there in that kind of like around the ocean.
Yeah, this
is where I feel much more myself than in Russia. So I went on that trip and I came back, and New Year, new me. I thought, fuck, I want to learn. Why don't I learn self-defense? Like, I've never learned martial arts. I don't know what hit me. I'm like, let me Google up what's around.
You're back in Russia though.
Yeah, back in Russia. Yeah, I went for Christmas and came back. And I originally had an idea of like karate and like something because I didn't know anything. I'm like, let me Google up, and I found this weird school called Black Tiger.
Okay.
Black Tiger was about Tai Chi and Qigong, and I had no idea what that is. So Tai Chi is a form of Wushu. Wushu is Chinese martial art, and it had an so-called direct translation external Wushu, external where you spar, sanda, where you actually fight in a ring. So normal kind of like sparring type of martial arts. And Tai Chi, there was an internal focused on working on energy and doing the patterns which still represents some sort of kicks and punches, etc. But it was more about energy, Chi.
Because I remember every person I've known who's done Tai Chi, I say that as if I know a lot, but a fair few, and they'll often be doing all the internal stuff, but they're like, and this is probably a similar thing about that, arrogance or whatnot. They say, I don't do the external stuff, but if I were, the reason I don't do it is because I can cut someone and they fly over to the roof.
Yes, I think that was not particularly my belief, but we were said that this is the thing that we wield this invisible power that would rather
you can't use it. You can never use it.
Contain it. Otherwise, you're gonna harm people. I'm like you. You
love that. That's right.
Of course I did.
In action, right?
But this was not the actual appeal which made me choose that. So I read these things, Tai Chi and Qigong, and they talk quite a lot about Qi, the energy. And this is probably the first time that I got familiar with it. Life force, yes. Yeah. Got introduced to the concept. I'm like, huh, what? Interesting. And I read on. And so they did Tai Chi, which is, patterns, and they did Qigong. And Qigong was breathing gymnastics. And they call it iron vest, which supposedly protects your body, builds up your body's resilience, and they test it in a particular way. So it's a breathing gymnastics that supercharges your body's ability to protect itself against physical and mental force. And by physical force, they run an exam, which consisted of 3 parts. First, you sit down in a lotus pose. They stack 3 bricks on top of your head, and the master smashes it with a sledgehammer. And there are videos. I'm like, yes, that's my reaction. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, there are pictures and there are videos. So imagine like a little fragile girl, by the looks of it, sitting with a stack of 3 proper red bricks on top of the head, master behind her, and just pow. And the bricks just get pulverized, evaporate. They just fly in this slow-mo.
But the sledgehammer doesn't continue onto her head?
Oh, no. And she stands up and walks away. I'm like, huh?
What the fuck?
Yeah, exactly, right? Second part of the exam, they put you in a sandwich.
But this is like, once you've completed Qigong, you can
So this is the demonstration of the ability, right?
Yeah.
Was not the entry exam. No. Second part is the iron sandwich, where you have this board with millions of nails, sharp nails, pam, 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 pam. They put you lay on it. They put another sandwich on top of you, and then they put another person on top of the sandwich.
Hey!
So they squish you between those millions of nails, yet you come out unscathed. And number 3 is they give you a spear. A spear, I couldn't tell how sharp that was. It ended up being pretty sharp. And the sharp edge, you put in this pit in your neck. Oh. And the dull edge of the spear, you put into a bumper of a car in neutral.
Yeah.
And your goal is to push the car in neutral on flat ground with pressing the spear against this part of your body to make it move.
That's ridiculous.
I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, okay, I'm sold. New year, new me. What could go wrong?
Oh, bro. Is that like, not to skip steps, but is this stuff real?
No, I mean, let's hear it. So I show up to first class, and I can see that the setup is very cultish in a sense, where there is a master's wife who's very like the
Seductive.
cardinal, like very, very authoritative, and she actually runs the show, and the master is like kind of like silently agrees. There is obedience. There is kind of like no questioning, but also, and people like a family kind of thing. And they introduced me to the technique was great. I felt fantastic doing the Tai Chi. So the first part of the training was Tai Chi first pattern, which is, I think, 15, 20 minutes long sequence of moves, which I eventually learned, and I loved it. And then the Qigong part, where you do weird breathing gymnastics and exercises, including bumping your head, top of your head against the wall in a particular way, standing, doing headstand without the help of hands. So essentially, you're leaning up like a log.
Like a plank.
A plank against the wall, just standing, like supporting your entire body's weight on the tip of your skull.
Yeah.
Right? And other exercises.
Did you do that?
Yes. I'm like, I love it. That's interesting. So, and I made some friends.
Yeah.
Which was always nice, right? Because they were all talking about that and the spirituality and like that, what you mentioned, that specialness in a way, wielding that special chi, because the Tai Chi is about actually feeling the chi, like the little tingles traveling around your body and meridian system. And it was always hard for me, but this was the start of my journey.
And
right?
if you go back to that mysterious Russian aura, that energy, that, what was it called?
Mysterious Russian soul. Yeah.
Yeah. That, I mean, there's nothing more mysterious, mysterious energy, soul thing than this kind of stuff, right?
I mean, it was Chinese after all.
Chinese, cheap, but the Indians have it as well, the prana.
Did it fuel that hidden secret fire? Probably did.
You're walking out of this random warehouse in Moscow and you go on the street and you're like, look at these cretins that drink alcohol and have casual sex. They don't know what kind of superhero I am.
Yeah, there was a meme template that where people are fighting and the guy stands in the corner. That was me.
That's it.
Yeah, that was all of us, not just me, I think. So 6 months later, it was January where I started, straight after New Year's. 6 months, they were holding an exam.
Where they do the bricks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why don't I... I'm like, I asked the teacher, do you think I'm ready? Do I think I'm ready? And I've been doing it for 3-4 times a week.
Yeah.
I would say religiously, but I was really into that. And I actually got physically stronger because one of those breathing gymnastics involves push-ups on the fingers, right? Not just palms, but fingers, like proper push-ups with specific breathing. I loved it. I actually became physically stronger doing that. And he was like, yeah, you can, because you've been trained a lot and 6 months is enough. I'm like, well, I guess we're doing it. Come day of the exam, I was pretty nervous.
Bro,
and it was not just me doing the test. It was quite a few people, and we were cheering for each other, and there were no injuries. Like,
so they did the bricks with the sledgehammer.
I have a picture of me, like the bricks evaporating on top of my head. They were real bricks, and it was like, whoa.
And a real sledgehammer.
Yes.
What the fuck?
I have a video of me pushing the car with a spear in my throat, and the car actually wheels moving. Yeah. So no.
But if I do that, that spear's going to go through my throat, right?
I presume so. We can try.
But when you do, because if you've actually done this, when you're about to receive the sledgehammer blow, you're pushing the car. Are you doing Tai Chi and shit when you're doing it? Like, what's the idea?
Yes. You have a mode that you need to go into. Like, you visualize a particular energy shield that you put in the area that gets affected, here or here, and it protects you.
And that's what you're practicing up against the wall. That's what you're practicing.
Pretty much, yes. And no one was injured. I wasn't injured. I mean, like, if you look from it from like purely scientific perspective right now, if I tell like a neurosurgeon that, hey, I did this, like they smashed a stack of 3 bricks on my head, and again, I have evidence, right?
Yeah.
They say, what a dumb idea. Like, you get a brain concussion, and what the fuck are you even doing? And I'm like, yeah, I see your point. But I was dumb and insecure, and I wanted to make friends, and that cult environment made you feel like a part of the family. You know, what could go wrong? And I loved it. So, hey, yes. So it worked.
Hey, real quick though, if this worked, and I guess we're about to answer that, but if this worked, like, why would you ever leave? That is the answer. Like, you know, you're a superhero.
This was the first step in that journey, right? Which kind of convinced me there is something behind it, and I have evidence that I can explore more because it makes me even more special. Right? That sacred goal of, you know, self-actualizing above everyone else, it was being fueled very well by that. I'm like, okay. I kept going. There were more like next level exams, but somehow I wasn't interested in them anymore because I kind of proved to myself, like smashing a bottle against your head, like, and it, again, sprinkling, but you're obviously protected, etc. I didn't go into any further exams. I kept doing Tai Chi and Qigong, and we went to Hong Kong for World Tai Chi Festival where we were. It was pretty funny to me because it kind of showed the difference of my thinking to the collective school thinking. We prepared a routine. We participated as contestants in World Tai Chi Festival, aka Championship, doing the pattern. It's like a gym. It's like they score you.
Yeah.
But we were only one team in our division, so we won gold. There was no one to win silver. And when I pointed that fact out, I'm like, everyone's like, yes, we won gold. Let's fucking go. I'm like, wait, what? We were just, there was no other. If we just went out and stood there, we would still win gold, getting 0 points, right? Right? Gee. And everyone's was really like, no, just stop. Why are you shitting on us, right? I'm like, but what? And then I kind of like, okay, I see where you're at. Like I get.
So they're even more insecure and even more.
Yeah, I got disenchanted real quick because I still had the, you know. But there was an interesting pivot. When we went to that festival, the school second in command broke off.
Okay.
Broke off, starting his own school, and also he just broke off. There was like some sort of politics, and you know, and there was like a lot of, you know, internal drama. But interestingly enough, aside from him breaking off and doing his own Tai Chi thing, he got into a different branch of different energy stuff that I got curious about.
Okay.
He met that guy. He got together with another dude who was teaching a particular method of Russian developed method of energy healing.
Okay.
And energy healing, like I already had a concept, got a concept of the energy. And I'm like, if I can become Harry Potter and touch people and they, you know,
they
get
love
up from
me.
their chair paralyzed and start walking, like, how special would I be, right? So that's probably my secret motivation. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let me talk to him. I was decent friends with him. So I met this other master, non-Tai Chi master, who was doing that energy healing thing. And this is the concept, as I found out. My first girlfriend, who was also part of that cult school, introduced me because she was already initiated into the method. So kind of like everything came together. I'm like, okay, introduce me. So here's the method. You mentioned Reiki. I'll get back to that. It's similar. If you accept that we have energy flowing in us,
yep,
and the energy flowing around us, if we accept that the human aura exists, it's not a rigid structure. It's not an eggshell. It vibrates.
Yeah.
So, and around us, there are lower and higher vibration levels. Around, like, this rock, this water, everything has vibration. And the method was basically, on a basic level, introduced as ability to heal people by changing the vibration in their body. For example, if you take two identical people and one is healthy and the other one has pneumonia, the person with pneumonia's vibration frequencies on some levels will be less healthy than the healthy person.
Sure.
And so what you can do is you can learn how to tune into that frequency and summon it, change the frequency, change the vibration, and therefore heal the pneumonia. for example, right? So there are layers of aura that are responsible for different parts of our physical body. And if you think of it as a tooth, when you eat some food and don't brush your teeth, tooth starts decaying from the outside and gets to the nerve, and then you have a toothache.
Yeah.
Same with the energy field. Something affects your life that makes a dent. It penetrates, reaches the physical level, and bam, you have pneumonia or something else.
Sure.
So the method was on a basic level about, getting initiated into a set of frequencies that you can use your password for to summon in yourself or in others, and have a method of a session to go through things, balance things out, balance the chakras out, and improve their well-being.
Like, just because it's such hippie science, can you just try to bridge that gap a bit more of, because it's so different, the idea of medicine, and you kind of have to have all this context for that. The actual healing itself, I understand, okay, you can improve the energy just like the tooth, it protects you in a sense from that. It also requires people, if someone is listening to this, to think, shit, if I'm sick, is it just because of that bug, or is it those bugs exist all the time, so it's actually my energy shield is penetrable because of something else, because of a vulnerability, because of, I had a breakup, so then my energy wall's down and then that bug came in. Or, cancer or something, it might be, oh shit, what did I do wrong? And then my energy waves throughout my life to let that kind of affect me. So it requires a lot of self-responsibility, I think,
It does, because I'm evidence-based. I have a very scientific mind in that sense, where I don't discard a statement if it's remotely interesting to me. I'd rather look for evidence, or like evidence that proves the opposite, right? Like if you
what evidence has taught you and shown you that this stuff is legit?
Yeah, I'm curious, so that's already good enough to try. Just like in Qigong and Tai Chi, I saw facts presented to me, videos of people getting their bricks smashed on top of their head. I trained 4 times a week. I did it to myself, and I came out of it unscathed.
Yeah.
Which, doing what I was told to do, and it worked. I'm like, there you go.
Yeah.
And I saw other people do that, so I'm like, cool. That's kind of like, it works. Somehow, correlation or causation, it works. Right? So here in this method, I heard it.
So what did you actually hear though? Did you hear people with cancer getting treated? Did you hear people with...
I'll get to that. So this was kind of like the basic application of the methods. There are 3 blocks of those frequencies, right? Block 1, beginner, block 2, master, and block 3, adept, right? So you could get initiated into each of them. And the first block focused on dealing with the body, that set of frequencies that alters things in the physical body of other humans, which was already nice, right? So this is where I started with. Let me just give you the quick picture so you can ask, so it makes more sense. The second block was dealing with the world around us, and that is, it was more akin to magic. So you can influence events, you can help people achieve things, you can open communication channels and intuition, and you can protect yourself on a magical, energetic way. And it was more about just the world around us and interacting with the energies around the world to influence cause and effect in some way. And block number 3, the adept, dealt with parallel worlds, travel to parallel worlds, astral projections, and hardcore energy weapons where you could kill a person using energy. Pretty much, if you in Harry Potter terms. So, but just and it came with a disclaimer that if you are given a weapon, it's your responsibility now. You can use it, but you will bear a lot of consequences for misusing it, and it will be, if you choose to take your life there, you use it wrongly. Be prepared to suffer some real consequences. So that kind of a disclaimer.
I guess my question is, just before we, just so I don't get lost and others don't get lost, you'd seen the videos of the sledgehammer on the bricks.
Yeah.
And then you took the curiosity in.
Yeah.
What was the equivalent of that video for this stuff?
Cool. Good question. I had a session run on me. Did I feel anything much? No, I didn't. Right? So I did not need evidence in this case to try it. I'm like,
why not though? Because you needed evidence on the other one, the Tai Chi
I
stuff.
did, but this is not necessarily my approach. I was rather curious. Okay, like it costs money to get initiated. The concept sounds really fun, even though it sounds woo, and it is woo. I might as well just try it because I know that if it turns out to be bullshit and people are just creating imaginary things, well, so be it. That's okay. It's my responsibility to try, right?
Yeah.
Because again, remember, I was in a spiritual search, and a part of that spiritual search was the attitude that, because remember, I was meant to be great and doing great things. So I was infallible in the sense that if I choose to pursue a path, the providence is taking me places, and who am I to argue, right?
Yeah.
So if something comes my way, I already had the brick slammed on my head and came out alive and unscathed. Maybe I'm on the right track. Maybe that politics, internal drama in the school led me to this next person for me to learn something.
Yeah,
so
it's a bit of faith as well.
I'm like, well, who am I to say no? So I said yes. And I started saying yes more because I'm like, my life is becoming more and more special and interesting and I love it. So why not? So I got initiated.
Is there a weird initiation ceremony?
Yeah, it's not a ceremony like those people in black hoods walking around the fire. No, it was just like a tuning of a radio station where a dude touches your chest and imprints that frequencies on you and gives you the passwords and the manual how to use them. That's it. I'm like, well, okay, nice. And I'm gonna go on 2 tangents here because this is the tangent you want to hear. So this dude, Andrew, was also into all spiritual stuff. So he was the direct student of the inventor of that method. And the method, by the way, has a really tacky name called cosmoenergetics.
Okay.
He was a direct student of the method inventor, and the method inventor by then already passed away. So I never got a chance to meet him, sadly. Or passed away, or as he said, he just chose a different world to live in. That's a direct quote from whatever the stories on the internet. Anyway, I started practicing, and I did get some weird evidence. Weird evidence that I can't just explain with just logic or like, hey.
Anything spring to mind, or just feelings?
Yeah, no, it's like, when you mentioned Reiki, sorry, I diverted a bit, digressed. The goal of this method is not just to heal people or change the world, cause and effect, etc. The true goal of learning this method is to be able to perceive the reality around us as it is. Specifically, seeing reality as it is, hearing reality as it is, tasting reality as it is, smelling reality as it is, and feeling it on your skin. That is, frequencies that you learn and that are imprinted on you, you can perceive through 5 senses.
Okay, yeah.
And this is the true goal of this method, to be able to see frequencies and then attain frequencies from like, hey, there's a particularly powerful place. Let me imprint it on myself through that 5 senses, and then I can imprint it on others and teleport them senses-wise to that place without even them going there.
Yeah, okay. So like, I get the vibe of Tahiti, and then without you can be sitting in Sydney, and I can be like, and suddenly you kind of
close your eyes, yeah, and that like
the pina colada, the turquoise water, the whatever that gives to your sensory.
Yeah, because I really like the idea how they explain there are like powerful places on Earth, and they describe, well, Earth, everything around us is energy, right? And the Earth has veins where the energy flows like rivers.
Yeah.
And those powerful places, we went to a couple of expeditions, and I really like that explanation where, megaliths,
Yeah.
Like those megaliths are needles that you put in the vein without the syringe. And so if you put a needle into the vein without a syringe, what happens? The blood starts sprinkling out.
Right. Okay.
So ancient people, they say.
Wait, megaliths is in like Stonehenge.
Yeah, ancient people in France, for example, went to France. They
Karnak?
carried huge rocks and dug them into the
Is
ground.
that Karnak?
Karnak, correct.
Yeah,
This
been
is
there.
where we went.
Yeah.
Yes, this is where we went on an expedition to Karnak. Love it.
Nice.
They insert those needles into the veins of the earth for the energy to start sprinkling around so they can shower in it.
Wow. That is fascinating.
Yeah. And then people who are skilled enough can copy the frequencies from that and then imprint it to carry over those powerful impacts of those places to the people without needing to go there. Being there obviously is always more powerful.
Yeah.
But if you crack a stone in two, leave one half of the stone in that place and take the other stone with you, will carry that energy with you.
But before we keep on going, because I've lived in a few places now, and obviously a lot of it comes down to social. You can logicize it by saying the kind of people, the kind of environment, but then you could also kind of on a meta level be like those people in that environment is created because of the energy if you take that as the source code.
Yeah.
So do you feel like that way about a place like Sydney, or, I certainly feel like that in the lake in Guatemala is a huge spiritual center. Maybe Far North, these places where Melbourne, I've never felt like that in Melbourne, for instance.
Yeah. I guess the answer is we will never know what exactly affects the vibe, the energy, feeling of the place. Were there some events in the past that attracted current people in the first place, but they get tainted by the whatever is left over from like the energy accumulated there?
Because what are the Aboriginals? Do you have any idea, like on this land, what if Karnak? Uluru, big one.
Is arguably, as I was told back then in 2011,
In
Uluru
Russia?
is a very prominent needle.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, it's this huge rock in the middle of nowhere. And it stuck in my head because I had no connections to Australia back then, but they specifically talked about Uluru as a very powerful place.
Yeah, cool.
Which, and again, indigenous population of Australia, I'm sure has some sacred knowledge that I was trying to learn here from a different source.
Yeah.
And I see something in it because, again, I'm evidence-based. I learned the method and I started, trying it on people. And I saw some fascinating effects that I couldn't explain. So the method is, you talked about Reiki. Reiki is a subset. It's just a frequency.
Yeah.
Even though Reiki practitioners say it as this is the
thing.
This is the thing. Cosmoenergetics argues that it's just one of the set of frequencies
like
that is particularly blissful and powerful in a good way.
It's like asana for yoga is not yoga. It's just one subset.
Correct. Right. So I started practicing, and there is a manual for how to run a session, right? Start to finish. And you obviously kind of diagnose a person, what's happening, ask them, hey, do you want to work on something? Do you want to, fix, I don't know, is there something with your kidneys or like whatever, right? And then you kind of like, okay, I do this order.
It's
right?
literally a manual.
There is a manual. Yes,
Yeah.
I have the manual. And without explaining to people what's going to happen and what exactly I'm doing, because all I'm doing, for all they know, is just putting hands on them and, not chanting anything. Just, it's like the session is 40 minutes, you're standing up with your eyes closed and I'm doing things around you.
Yeah.
Or to you. People started fainting.
Wow.
And then I understand.
Is that because you're stuffing it up? Like.
Yes. Because there is some particular sequence where you pump the energy in and also take the energy out. And I messed up the order because I was new and people started fainting.
Because you take the energy out without.
Yeah, correct. And I'm like, oh wait, fuck, sorry. To my sister who trusted me. But okay, I fucked up.
Awesome.
I apologize. But this is an effect, right? But you put a hand on someone and they faint. Another example where my mom was very welcoming of me learning that, and she advertised me to her friends. And we came to my mom's friend's house, and she's like, "Oh, he's been having a lot of back pains, and can you have a look at him?" I'm like, "Sure." I'm Harry Potter, remember? And the dude was like, if you imagine a Russian,
Yep. Boris.
Russian Boris, he was that.
Yeah.
Very, very like flat face, very reserved.
Just a bear of a man.
Bear of a man. So talking to him about wound energy, he's like, "I'll do it because my wife wants me to do it."
Yeah.
Right. But I kind of maybe misrepresent him in some way, but general vibe, right? I still remember after the session, he started describing the colorful grids he saw in front of his eyes and patterns of light out of nowhere. And not that I healed them and etc. because I was still practicing.
Yeah.
Because
but bro's acid tripping.
Acid tripping without the acid, right? So like the things that people describe.
Fuck yeah, Boris.
And the people you least expect it from, like the least sensitive people, right?
Yeah.
Who don't overthink it but directly feel, led me to believe that there's something behind it which will reinforce my desire to continue doing it. Right? So I took block 2, which remember deals with the world around us.
Yeah.
I got initiated. And the thing about getting tuned into each block, as they describe it, as with getting each block gives you more responsibility, but it also affects your aura on the whole. It thins it and makes it more high vibrational. So it actually changes the quality of your energy field on the whole. Well. Sensitive. I wish it did, but for me it takes a lot of work. But the thing is, they say the further you go, not just it's just more responsibility you get, but you also get more responsibility to guide your life that way, to use it. In a sense where you get the block 3, where it's like talks about traveling in the parallel universes and all that, which I don't have. If you don't practice, the sheer force of it that you wield will crush you.
Really?
Yeah, so you have to, it's like probably the best analogy I can provide. You get old and frail, and the only thing you can realistically do to maintain your longevity is your good nutrition and working out, making your body keep moving. Otherwise, you're just gonna crumble and I don't know, collapse.
Yeah.
Here's the same thing. They say the further you go, the more responsibility you have, and there is more responsibility you have to continue practicing and changing the world now that you have this ability. And that was scary. But at the same time, this kind of like blessing in the curse part that you have to keep going comes with a blessing that your life changes.
Yeah.
And I physically felt that change after getting that block 2.
Okay.
My life suddenly started becoming progressively better.
Yeah.
Like things starting working out much more. And again, it's hard to say whether it's correlation or causation. I just noticed.
It's a placebo, like.
Yeah. The outcome, I felt tangible improvement in my life path that is just my life. I've started taking myself places where I felt happier more often. And it was like a cutoff. Like I got initiated into that. I gained the ability to influence situations, which for the record, I barely use the method right now at all. Like sometimes
that's bad, isn't it? You're gonna crumble under the weight.
They only talked about it in like level 3, so block 2 kind of like you're still fine. I started getting sick much less often. Not that I was often getting sick, but in my just the direction of my life changed for the better across many ways, including Australia, which I guess we'll get to. So there was definitely something behind it. And the other angle of this guy who I learned all this from is he did other spiritual practices, and one of the practices was the psychological training, which they call shaman's burial.
Oh yeah, this is where we were going. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it in Tonga. So before I got initiated into block one of these things, they were advertising the trip, like a weekend trip to a forest around Moscow to do some psychological training and get buried alive.
Get buried alive. Fuck, bro. Yeah.
And I'm already kind of like pretty deep into that stuff, and I kind of have like, curiosity. I'm like, that sounds interesting. People, get into a grave and get covered with soil. I'm like, what is that about? So I bought the ticket. So we arrived. It's a tent, like in the forest of Russia, and I met the dude for the first time. I really liked him. He's like this kind Russian bear. So the thing was as follows. So the training, it was a ritual that they derived from the ritual that actually shamans had in Siberia, part of Siberia, where they did bury shamans to connect them to earth and connect their body to their mind, and connect to the Mother Earth to kind of like plug in to charge. And it had some sort of obviously spiritual connotation to it that I won't be able to deliver right now, but they adapted it to, just a spiritual practice that would benefit your resilience and, feeling small and being connected to the world around you. I'm like, that sounds interesting. Why not? So the first day of this thing was just some interesting exercises of manifesting, being in a movable rock, for example, and grounding, and a couple of people trying to push you off of your grounded stance, right? Something like that. So it's just all fun and just talking and practicing stuff to kind of get ready.
So you're just kind of standing there.
Like you're standing in this really grounded low pose, and obviously you're very steady in that, and kind of I can't remember the exercise.
Just warming yourself up to be
connected to Earth. You kind of like warming up the connection,
like an object rather than this moving animal.
Correct. Yeah. And on day 2 we did the actual thing, and the actual thing is as follows: the burial is in fact a burial. So there's no box. There you dig a grave, roughly 20-25 centimeters deep. There is a top, that you put yourself in. So they wrap you in the top, so you're not directly in contact with soil, but you're in the top. You're laying on your back, face up.
Yeah.
And
your face is in the top.
Everything is in the top. So they wrap you in the top, and they give you a hose that you put like next to your mouth or in your mouth that goes to the surface, so you can't breathe.
Yeah. Like a snorkel.
A snorkel. Yeah. Oh, actually, you know what?
On the hooker.
This was the what do you call it? The premonition, the snorkel.
Yeah, and you hope someone doesn't bloody hold...
Just now I made that connection. That's actually hilarious. You have no idea.
This is the first free dive.
Yeah, first free. Yeah, it's actually.
Because the water's just as heavy as soil, right?
I'm just digesting that realization, but I'll get back to that. So yeah, you lay on your back. They kind of give you some cushions of some extra soil, so it's you're not like protruded, because soil is very heavy.
Yeah, okay.
You have no idea how heavy the soil is until they bury it. And 20 centimeters, you cannot get out on your own.
That's mental.
You need external help to unbury, because you both
even if you twist,
you can't twist, you can't move.
What?
Everything around you is like imagine it's like a clay or silicon form.
That's mental to think, because whenever you see that, whenever you hear about buried alive, or people wake up and it's like, how can you not get out of that? Like, like an avalanche or something,
yeah. So it's very heavy.
Yeah, mad.
And it's dry soil. The wet soil is even heavier than that, right? So you lay on your back. You have like cushions under your knees, under your ankles, under your neck to kind of like protect the bone structure from pressure.
Wow.
So you don't have any gaps. And they cover you with towel, give you the hose. And I wasn't the first one to go, so I observed people getting under. And it was really interesting that some people feel ready, they lie down. And again, the duration of the burial is 35-40 minutes.
It's not nothing.
It's not nothing. I mean, you can make it how long you want. When you're ready, they'll dig you out in like seconds.
Yeah.
Like 10, 15 seconds.
And you just scream through the hose.
The, ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see that some people felt ready. They lay down, get wrapped, put the hose in the mouth, start getting from the legs, they start being covered with soil. Everything's going fine. As soon as soil touches the chest and the face covered with top as well, they freak out.
Yeah. And they like...
Yeah, and they full on panic attack out of the experience.
Wow.
That was already interesting because, hey, I'm like, what's like, I felt some sort of slight nervousness, but I was very curious and I wanted to do it. I don't remember myself being super scared.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, this is a special thing to do. I'm like, I'm on the right path kind of thing. So the idea again behind it is that this meditation, and it is a meditation, there are stages to it.
It's ultimate surrender, right?
Ultimate surrender to Mother Earth, right? And connection and reconnection where you lay in the grave, buried. The only thing you can do is breathe. You open your eyes, you close your eyes. There's no difference. You barely hear any muffled sounds about, but it's still pretty shallow, so you can't see. Can't hear some people talking like, yeah. You can't move. So you might as well just be.
It's so interesting you say that, because this is how my brand, I guess, of freediving and what attracts me to freediving and how I've always taught it and talked about it is so in line with that. I've always painted people the image of, that's why I've always loved lakes as well, because they're kind of dead space and they get dark quick, and 30, 40 meters down, it might be pitch black, like the abyss. Like you open your eye, close your eyes, it's almost brighter because you have little nerve endings going off, right? And it's silent and it's not moving and it's just like re-entering the womb or dying, right? Like it might as well be the same thing, and you really understand shit.
Yeah. So this was the point. Exactly that. So you're deliberately made small, and your goal ultimately, there are a couple of steps to that meditation, is to dissolve, to lose your eye.
Right.
In darkness. Sees, the term I found later. So step one, when you actually manage to get buried, is, well, to relax. Breathing with that weight on your chest is actually hard. So one full breath, not a thing.
Yeah.
You're shallow, you're managing there. You still have access to fresh air from the surface, right?
That image I described as you're not breathing.
No, yeah. So the key to passing stage one to relax is to, well, surrender, to let the earth kind of crush you. But also you kind of shake it off, and suddenly, hey, you can actually breathe and get access to enough air. When you manage to do that, it's sensory deprivation. And in sensory deprivation, the brain decides to, well, fill up the void by becoming more sensitive and half fighting things that don't exist and half actually hearing things that you don't normally hear or see or feel or anything. And I've done the thing 3 times. One time it was in a TV show, which again is another story. All like 35, 40 minutes. And it was always something that I looked forward to, because when you get to kind of like settle in there and you sink into that feeling, it's like you plug into charge, the best way I can describe it, because the soil is kind of cool in terms of temperature. It's almost like your skin starts disappearing. Your skin becomes the soil around you. You kind of start like, it's almost like I am made of ice cream and I'm put on a rock on a hot day, and slowly but surely I'd start kind of like melting away into the surroundings.
Yeah,
that's the best way I can describe it, right? And I never got past that due to kind of like limited exposure and kind of always like it's been a special setting and all that. But the best feeling about it is, aside from being under and just melting away and kind of just tuning in into what's happening around you and like being in that vein of earth, hopefully hoping to take that flow of blood that takes you somewhere. And people reported hearing trains passing when the train station was 2 kilometers away.
What?
Underground ribbons, etc. The best part of actually having that opportunity of escaping, being in the present moment, which I love and which I preach in freediving so much right now as I teach, was the end of that experience where it's your time, the time is up. They start uncovering you. They start with the face, and now they can see the top. And they unwrap the top, and you get to open your eyes for the first time. And the first thing you see is the trees rising up to a blue sky. And you take the hose out, and you actually take that one breath.
Yeah.
And it feels like a rebirth, where you're just out of the mother's womb, and yes, you can. It's very easy to start crying and being emotional, because being in that darkness and seeing the light above you, that blue sky and the trees, the pine trees all just growing into the sky, it probably triggers that memory that we all have when we got born.
Wow.
And that feeling is like, I can't try to describe it with my English or Russian or whatever, but it has to be felt. It's when you melt away as an ice cream man, and then you finally back together, you get the charge. You plug out 100%.
Yeah.
Ready to go, but also you take time to just rest there for a bit. You don't really want to move. You just like...
It must be such a, not a newfound, but as you say, a recharged or refreshed appreciation, gratitude for the beauty, for life itself.
Yeah. It was magical. We did a TV show with a British comedian, Carl Pilkington.
An Idiot Abroad, right?
The Idiot Abroad, yes.
Yeah.
Also like a party, what do you call party trick that always attracts attention. Have you been buried alive? Everyone like, what? Yes, I have. Yeah. He's portrayed as a introvert and sociopath to a certain degree. He wants to be left alone. It's his persona. In real life, he's more chill. On the TV show, we took him through the experience, and I thought he's definitely going to jump up. But he spent the entire 40 minutes there, and on the TV show, on camera, on live, he described it as the best experience he had in Russia. And I'm like, I know why. I sure know why, because it sounds like a very scary thing. And I was kind of carrying this idea with me after I've arrived to Australia, that I would love to do it here with people who are interested in it, because I know what it feels like. And even though the idea sounds very scary and it might attract the law enforcement, like imagine,
I'll do that.
Imagine in the backyard, someone's burying someone alive, and people, if you see something, say something. I think that I've long lost it. I remember the experience, but I wasn't interested enough to recreate, and I didn't have anything here.
Artie, we should do that.
We should do that, because I think it's like freediving, but into something else. It's the same feeling.
Into the earth, though, is so different, isn't it?
It's the same feeling, and again, I love the snorkel part. It just dawned on me. It's fantastic. It's the same feeling, but also it's a different quality.
Yeah.
And but the common thing is reconnection to ourselves, and feeling small, and feeling that divinity is one of the types of happiness that we can experience as humans.
It's so interesting how you describe it, because I haven't done the journey you have, and I'm not saying I've got to the exact same destination, but I think I've told you about my breath hold meditation class I developed while in Guatemala. And that state is exactly where because I was getting myself to a similar state of being completely still. And I made a few connections actually, and this might be a bit of a tangent, but when you're still for long enough, but usually you just go to sleep, right? Because physical stillness is associated with sleep. But when you start to do breath hold and stuff, you can kind of keep your mind awake and occupied enough to not go asleep, but your body's asleep. And that's a way to kind of, as you say, detach from your body. And another link I've made, this is maybe revealing my secrets, but it was on the Huberman podcast. He said that when you're dreaming, because again, your body's still when you sleep, so your mind can then kind of go off and make its own world, because not living in this world, because you live in this world via your body, right? Correct. So if your body's charging, then your mind can live in a different world, and that's what dreaming is. He said that hey puppies, if you wake up and then don't move, you can hold on to the dream.
Lucid dreaming, that's how it works.
Right, exactly, right?
I play with it.
But as soon as you start moving, like you move and you wake up, and then you like can't even remember the dream anymore, right?
Yeah.
So what I was thinking is that's kind of what's happening, because when I did this meditation stuff, keeping people and myself awake with the breath hold, you can start to maybe not lucid dream to a certain extent, maybe if you took it really far, but it doesn't take long, 20 minutes or sense, where you start to get detached from your body. And then when you're in the breath hold, you kind of have to get detached, because the carbon dioxide basically makes your body a torturous place to live. You're convulsing and all this stuff. But if you've got it, so your consciousness is living in a different world, it might not be lucid. There might not be other dimensions yet, but it's maybe floating here.
It's like an anchor.
Yeah. And then it's like your body can be in hell, but your mind I've often been doing headstands in my mind.
Yeah.
My mind's consciousness is like just above my body.
Yeah.
And then my body can be.
Yeah. I actually, it's funny you say that. I'm pretty good at falling asleep. And I tried falling asleep holding my breath.
Yeah.
Just doing like a nice, maybe slightly hyperventilated breath hold to last longer in that, and to have time to actually drift away.
Yeah.
And yes, the urge to breathe comes, and now you describe it. I remember that experience where I'm like in two different places at once.
Exactly. And you can kind of go between, because they're such familiar places, you can kind of go between them. And obviously lucid dreamers will make that other place familiar enough so they can go between. But and another part is the way you describe that, it's almost like going to the other side. People who do some crazy psychedelic stuff, I mean, I have as well, like it's a very similar sensation where it's not that you're dying, but you're definitely not living this life.
Yeah.
You're in a different place. And when you come back to this, it's like, wow, I don't know if this is truly what it's like after death, but they do say you get released DMT and whatnot when you do die.
Yeah.
So it feels, and for all intents and purposes, if it feels like, and I can believe and trust that, it's useful, right? Maybe doing a psychedelic experience, maybe doing a crazy breath hold, maybe a deep free dive, maybe a buried alive. These are all death-like experiences that waking up from and getting released from gives you such an appreciation for this current life, and the realization that when I do die, because I will, it's not going to be that bad, because I've visited a few times before.
Yes, and I think yes, as you say, there are multiple experiences that can simulate depth.
Yeah.
I always correct myself when I saw we're going to do depth tomorrow, and I'm like, no, I meant depth when I teach freediving, and now I'm correcting myself the other way around. That's funny. They do simulate death to make us face our fear of death. That I think drives a lot, 99% of what we do as humans.
So much. The fear of death is what
it's huge.
Allows you to not, ironically, doesn't let you live your life if you fear of death. Because then
which is funny.
It's so weird, right?
So that burial thing, in the first place, when they declare the goal of the training is to make you face it in the way to why those people panic attack and jump out of the grave. Because their mind rationally knows that this is just a play scenario, that we design it, you're safe, there's the safety measures, this is the time, you name it, right? But the body being exposed to that genetic memory or whatever evolutionary memory thinks that they're genuinely dying.
Yeah.
And there is no mind-body communication to like, hey, yeah, we're fine. but because nervous system thinks, no, we're not
Takes
fucking
over.
fine. We're dying. Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Right. And this was one of the goals of that training, to actually restore that connection via this means of, getting covered with soil and breathing through that snorkel. I cherish that experience because it's just weird way to do that. Some people do psychedelics, some people do free diving, some people do things, but
they're all hitting the same spot. The one thing that strikes me with this specific one is that all the other ones are not so tied into earth. Like, a lot of people connect with water because I think no one can live in water. Right? You just can't live a life in water. You can live a life on water, you can live a life around water, but not in the water. So going in the water is, to a minor extent, like a self-burial. Every time you go in water, even if it's just a swim and a paddle, you can't live there. So to a lesser degree, it's almost like you're burying yourself, and you couldn't. Are you following that link? Does that kind of make sense to you?
Yeah.
So I think that's the attraction to it. The cool thing, but of course, because we don't live in it,
but we used to. We have
once upon a time,
response.
Right? But I mean, I guess you're kind of outsourcing and segregating that death-like experience and all the benefits from that to the water. And then when I come back on Earth, there's a risk that you lose it because you just keep it in that one geographical spot.
Yeah.
When you bury yourself in the earth, it might be a very similar experience to what happens in the water on a free dive or swim, whatever. But you can't say, oh, that's how I feel in the water. That's my connection in the water, and it's only sourced there. Like, this is the one that connects you with under your ground, where you live day to day.
Yeah.
And that's really special. And it just creates that link more powerfully and more obviously than the water stuff does.
That's true.
I'm just going to make sure the video. What's the time, by the way?
I have to go. It's 11:30.
Okay, cool.
I'm happy to continue. I think we're just finally getting somewhere. It's been, what?
Is it already 11:30? Yeah, cool. All right. Well,
there's a lot.
Yeah.
I can talk forever, obviously, about this. You said you pitched that idea with me. I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll find things to talk about. But then I'm actually uncovering layers and layers of memories that actually I can see from your perspective. Like, we're weaving it into something organic, but also interesting. And I'm like, actually, those memories are great. I have so many more.
Yeah, and this is why I started the podcast, to use the structure of, the surface tale of what my life is, but that just there's a book, but then there's chapters, and then you forget. That chapter could be a whole book if I let it.
Yeah. So fuck, that was great. I haven't felt that present for a long, long time. So thank you for this.
No, thank you. Thank you for being part of it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just something. I don't know. Like the snorkel thing. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah,
this is true. This is hilarious, but this is true.
Well,
I had the snorkel the entire time, and I did not realize.
Yeah, whenever I'll definitely be back here within the next year or so, and then you come down to Melbourne semi-frequently. So,
but do we wrap up, or
we'll wrap up now, and then we'll just get you back next time?
No, it's not like before. Like, if you wanted to release it, like cut it off.
No, I'll release this, and then we'll get you back for part 2.
Yeah. No dramas.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Let's go meet my students.
Yeah.
Fuck. Oh, I loved it.